the experience of having had the safety plan. And you start thinking to yourself, I should have stood up for myself. Or I let that parent walk all over me. Or, I didn't show that parent card and I really should have. And thoughts like these can lead the survivor to feel that disappointment in themselves, I think the calling card of regret. Another adaptation that can also lead to regret is having to accept blame that wasn't yours. So if a narcissistic parent is angry with you and he's often done to scapegoat a child, you hope to prove in your innocence. Children in such difficult situations grow to learn this early and often in their lives with this narcissistic parent. And when the narcissistic parent is met with that parent's own intolerable feeling of possessiveness or undeservingness, that parent has to expunge those feelings onto the child. And of course, the parent does this unconsciously and perceives the child to be the undeserving and defective one in their relationship. From there, the narcissistic parent can easily berate, divide, and devalue the child as they discourage such ill will attempt. And then by locating these intolerable feelings of defectiveness and undeservedness in the scapegoat child, instead of the narcissistic parent themselves, the parent gets to feel a little safer from their own feelings and like they're sort of in control of the child. And they do this by influencing the child to identify with these terrible feelings and beliefs so that the parent doesn't have them. So as a result of all this, the child will have the experience of taking the blame for situations that were not the child's fault time and again. That goes back to the sort of Orwell, where the narcissistic parent used the scapegoat child to serve this sort of psychological function for the parent of keeping them feelings of helplessness at bay. And the child sort of wants to have any sense of reality of that parent must be taught. So how this can be regret for the child survivor? Well, after surviving such an ordeal, the now adult survivor may look back and feel disappointed in themselves for having assumed blame for situations that were never their fault. They may think to themselves like, I thought I should have get away with blaming me for being today, etc. When I had nothing to do with it. It really wasn't my fault. And these are some common ways survivors have had to emotionally respond to themselves in order to maintain their relationship to the narcissistic parent. This could sacrifice having a feeling social. Most scapegoated children do not experience the conscious punishment as they sought sources of happiness outside of that feeling. The narcissistic parent will often pump up images of what the child did or didn't do that meant the child didn't deserve to see their parents with a goal of a rich social life. So if the child shows enthusiasm for people outside of that parent, and this could ruin the narcissistic parent's fragile sense of being special to the child. And the parent would then, the narcissistic parent would then be responsible for the child to take these things and happiness away from the child. So how much this is the regret for them to leave right after. And, you know, frankly, it can take a long time before you feel like you're being relieved by such, you know, people. And I think that the reason is that most times when survivors try to tell someone about how they were being treated, they were being validated by that other parent and or engaging spouse figure for that narcissist. So sort of unique well, I really want to spend some time with YouTube videos for reading those topics. I hope that you found today's video
More soup salad on the combo? All you can eat. Hi, my name is Jay Reed. I'm a photographer in San Francisco, California. Today, I'm going to talk about shifting one's focus from the trauma of narcissistic abuse towards oneself in the process of recovery. In today's video, I'd like to talk about the gradual shift that happens in the recovery from narcissistic abuse for the survivor, where one's attention and energy used to have to be focused on the narcissist gets to be redirected towards oneself through noticing oneself, prioritizing one's own experience, and strengthening the connection to that inner experience, and ultimately bringing that connection into new relationships where the goal becomes to add to that sense of connection to oneself. And that is a sharp contrast to what relationships had been when narcissists were involved. In those cases, narcissists began to abandon the connection to oneself and put the connection to the narcissist above oneself, especially above oneself. So in today's video, I'm going to discuss a little bit about how that comes to be, where the connection gets prioritized to the narcissist rather than to oneself for the survivor. How that sort of experience of fixedness or occupation of self and narcissist or even others persist after the abuse. And finally, to offer a few ways to disrupt the connection towards others. And by others, I mean in this way of sort of the other demanding all attention towards them at the expense of the connection towards oneself. So disrupting that and nurturing the connection one has towards oneself. So as I talk about connection to oneself, connection to others, there's sort of a nebulousness to what is meant. So, these aren't, it's not like saying, hey, that's a table over there, that's a shoe over there. We talk about connection to oneself versus connection to others in this sort of narcissistic abuse way. So I hope that though it at least metaphorically makes sense. And I hope that the way it gets talked about today will kind of add some more specifics to what is by these concepts. Okay, so why is the connection to the self often so weak in the process of being narcissistically abused? Well, one way to sort of think about the narcissist's sort of objective when they are relocating their own worthlessness into, in essence, their victim, is that narcissist is trying to use her power to coerce the victim to believe that the narcissist's opinion, him or her, is more important than that person's opinion about him or herself. And, when I say they will leverage power and authority, it can get fairly vicious, where the narcissist may spare no cruelty in enforcing this outcome. So they may actually look for signs in the victim that person is, say, paying more attention to themselves than the narcissist, and go in on that victim all the more viciously to condition the victim not to prioritize him or herself above the narcissist, and rather generating enough fear of the sort of consequences faced by the narcissist that that victim is forced to survive by prioritizing the narcissist above him or herself. For example, I don't know if there's a survivor of narcissistic abuse who is not familiar with being called selfish by the narcissistic person who abused them. And what selfish I think can mean in these scenarios is that the victim is committing the heavy quotes here transgression of turning towards themselves rather than completely towards the narcissist, what the narcissist needs, affirming what the narcissist thinks. To not be sort of constantly at the ready to offer that to the narcissist can constitute, in the narcissist's mind, a reason to punish his or her victim. So, for example, for another sort of fictional, let's say client, person in recovery, let's say there's a person named Sarah, and Sarah had a very narcissistic father. Sarah found happiness in helping others. That was just sort of part of how she was, part of who she was coming into the world. And that characteristic of hers made her father, who worked as a, let's say, a principal in a school district, often enraged because he sort of lived a life, at least as I like to think of it, I think that he lived a life that had the trappings of someone who wanted to help others and derive real meaning from it. But meanwhile, behind closed doors, he abused Sarah and his spouse. And so when Sarah would recall finding herself drawn to charitable activities, and one thing she got involved with was Habitat for Humanity in her high school years. And initially the father sort of tolerated this, but at one point, after a long day Sarah spent at the Habitat for Humanity construction site, which is it's an organization that builds homes, I think, free of charge for needy families of shelter. Anyway, so when Sarah gets home, her father just flies into a rage and accuses her of being someone who's a do-gooder, or at least likes to portray herself as a do-gooder, but meanwhile leaves all her familial duties undone and ignores the chores and needs of the family. I think this example is relevant because Sarah's father was targetedly trying to disrupt her connection with this quality within herself of being someone who derives genuine meaning by helping others. And I suspect that her father found her connection with this quality within herself to threaten his sense of control over her. And again, by control, what I mean is that he may have worried that she could be beginning to care more about her own opinion about herself and this really just genuine good quality she possesses over his opinion of her and his vicious character assassinating and undermining attack on her supposed motivation for being involved in Habitat for Humanity is really reflects his very pathological need to control where she directed her attention and focus, and that would be towards him rather than to herself. And he was adamant in making sure she not see what she really had as a person when she looked at herself. So those accusations that she was just trying to be a do-gooder were meant to distort, in essence, her vision of herself. So to just, in essence, not risk that vicious assault from the narcissist by just working to keep the focus, or one's own focus, on that narcissist rather than oneself, can be a critical way to survive such treatment, such relationships, such upbringings in childhood. And I think particularly, even if it starts in childhood, one's own nervous system, I think, can be sort of primed to sort of look outward and sort of make sure that one kind of internalizes this rule that it's wrong, prohibited, actually, in fact, dangerous to focus on oneself before focusing on the other, and so doing is very helpful to the survivor at the time that they're facing and in close quarters with the narcissist. Once recovery becomes possible, meaning that there's a sufficient amount of safety between oneself and one's narcissistic abuser, and this safety can, needs to include psychological safety or buffer, emotional, and also physical, in whatever form it completely takes. Once this safety is felt, it becomes possible to gradually and gently and incrementally redirect one's attention back inward to notice oneself and one's experience, into, in essence, turn away or finally ignore the other. And I think what can happen through the course of this is that one gets to sort of rediscover other people in a way that does not involve losing sight of what one's experiencing oneself. That the narcissist is sort of gets lost, and ultimately that's a very good outcome. And what is found is a much more reciprocal, mutual other to have a connection with, in addition to the connection they hold with themselves. And this becomes a very important shift in the survivor's outlook of what relationship they get to know that it's not a set of conditions imposed by the other person that they must adhere to or else, but rather it should be an arrangement where the survivors to be cultivating a relationship with their own selves, sensations, even their breath. And as this relationship grows stronger, then to be in contact with others in ways that add to that connection to him or herself, rather than compromise it. And this can often be a wildly unpromoted, though I think way more comfortable way of experiencing oneself while in the company of others. But it's, I think, such an outcome well worth working for. And again, like in every week, I just want to emphasize how much of a process this is. And there are good reasons to feel very intolerable at times to notice inward rather than sort of keep attention directed outward. And I mean, just of this sense of worthlessness that was never one's own. But at the beginning, that's often not in an inner way.